Imagine being trapped in darkness for days on end, your mind unraveling as something whispers just beyond sanity. It began in the dead grip of the Soviet era, shrouded in secrecy and desperation. Scientists, hungry for an edge in the Cold War, devised an experiment so cruel few have dared to speak of it. They locked 5 political prisoners inside a sealed chamber, promising freedom to those who endured, awakened by one tormenting rule: no sleep for 15 days straight. The room was cold, with heavy metal walls cloaked in peeling green paint, air circulating through hissing vents. Monitors flickered, capturing data they barely understood. At first, the prisoners were restless, agitated, but alert, their conversations weaving between hope and panic. They spoke of the outside world, missing sunlight, and the warmth of skin on skin. Hours stretched into one long nightmare. The scientists pumped in a strange, experimental gas to suppress sleep naturally, watching for any sign of exhaustion. On the second day, voices faltered, movements slowed at times, yet none succumbed wholly. By day 4, subtle changes began. Their eyes, once bright, dulled, halos of dark violet circles etched in stark contrast beneath. They whispered of shadows growing on the walls, figures just out of sight. The scientists dismissed it as delirium, but their notes trembled with unease. Then the laughter started soft at first, trembling like distant wind through hollow trees. It wasn't right. By day 6, paranoia gripped them. They refused to meet each other's gaze, muttering about betrayals and spies. One prisoner scratched furiously at the wall for hours, fingernails bleeding, whispering to something unseen. The air in the chamber grew thick, heavy with a scent like burnt hair, and something ancient, like rotting earth deep underground. Cameras caught sudden convulsions, whispered prayers in lost languages. The experimenters debated terminating the trial, but orders from Moscow insisted on completion. By day 9, the prisoners began speaking in tongues, garbled, unnatural syllables, seething with malice and desperation. When asked about the voices, their faces twisted as if they heard a symphony only they could perceive, eerie hymns woven from a cold void. And then came the screams, piercing, guttural cries that clawed at the walls and seeped into the air vents. The scientists hesitated before opening the chamber for brief inspections, only to recoil and seal it back up in terror. Inside, the prisoners had stopped speaking completely. Instead, they paced in circles, eyes wide, tracking movement no one else could see. By day 12, the situation worsened. One prisoner, gaunt and trembling, attempted to strangle himself with a threadbare shirt. Another bit into his own hand to break free from some invisible grip. Their skin rotted in patches, revealing bruised flesh beneath dimming muscles. The gas that kept them awake seemed to fuel something else, some awakener lurking beyond reason. The final inspection was scheduled for day 15. As the chamber door hissed open, thick, putrid air rushed out, choking the scientists with the stench of decay and madness. The room was a nightmare made flesh. 4 prisoners were grotesque shadows of themselves, eyes black and sunken, bodies twisted unnaturally. But the 5th, the quiet one from the start, was missing. The radio crackled with frantic static. "He's gone," one scientist whispered, voice shaking like brittle ice. The others found him concealed in the ventilation shafts, skeletal and clutching a makeshift rag soaked in blood. When questioned, his silence was the loudest terror. They say he no longer recognized them, his gaze vacant and infinite. Over the next hours, the prisoners lost all semblance of humanity. They screamed at the walls, tore at their flesh, and in a final act of horror, began mutilating each other. Their skin peeled like dying leaves, their voices warped beyond human sound. The gas continued pumping, a cruel drum driving them further into madness. After the chamber was sealed indefinitely, the scientists burned all footage and data. Officially, the experiment was erased, a failed test of human endurance. But rumors say during the brief inspections, something else was captured. Not on film, but in bone-deep memories, the sense of a presence lurking in sleepless minds, feeding on fear and silence. Some whispered the prisoners weren't only deprived of sleep, but that something awake had taken root in that chamber, twisting their souls. Decades later, accounts surfaced of men who vanished after claiming they heard the whispers from a forgotten experiment, their eyes wild, fingers clawing at the night air. And some scientists involved met brutal ends, their dreams invaded by a hollow voice urging endless wakefulness. So, if you find yourself staring into the void, eyelids heavy, but refusing to close, heed this. Sometimes the darkest horrors don't come from monsters outside, but from what awakens inside when the mind is left too long in silence. Would you dare stay awake knowing what waits just beyond your fading thoughts?